In previous videos, we looked at this decision of how much nitrogen to apply to wheat, and we also looked at if we produced a given amount of wheat, what will be our costs, what will be our total fixed costs, our total variable costs, and our total costs. In this brief video, we're going to look at going from some of these total costs to an average cost and see why that can be particularly important. Let me remind you where we're starting from. These are the kind of problems where I give you the relationship between nitrogen and wheat yield, and I give you prices like the price of wheat, the price of nitrogen, and then you should be able to calculate all these types of costs. And first I want to look at the going from total cost to average cost. And let's do this. Let's suppose that we are applying 50 pounds of nitrogen per acre. We harvest 36 bushels of wheat per acre, and our total cost is $115 per acre. So it costs $115 per acre to raise 36 bushels per acre. We now want to express that cost on a per unit basis, on a per bushel basis. And so we're going to come up with average cost. And this is probably pretty intuitive to you. Average cost is just going to equal your total cost divided by output. And if we do this for the case where we're harvesting 36 bushels per acre, this means we're going to take our total cost of $115. We're going to divide it by our output, which is 36 bushels per acre, and that's going to give us a cost of $3.19 per bushel. So when we're harvesting 36 bushels per acre, the cost on average of producing each bushel is $3.19. And when we do that for all different levels of production, you can see down here, if we produce 36 bushels per acre, the average total cost in this column right here, $3.19, just like we calculated. And if you make these calculations for each different possible level of production, you get different average costs. To show you why average cost can be particularly useful, I want you to notice something. We know that total profits equals take all your revenues, you subtract your cost, and that gives you profits. Now notice I'm going to do something. First, I'm going to recognize that revenues just equals price times quantity of output. So all I did was replace the word revenues with P for price, that's the price of wheat that we get, and Q for quantity, the quantity of wheat that we produce. And then I'm going to do, it's not so much of a mathematical trick, maybe something you've never seen before, but I'm going to multiply every term by 1, but in particular, a fancy one. I multiply the P and Q term by this, Q divided by Q. And of course, no matter what Q is, Q divided by Q is simply 1. Anything divided by itself is 1. And I'm going to multiply cost over here by 1. So Q divided by Q is just a fancy 1. Now notice that we have a Q here and a Q there, and so they can cancel each other out, and so I can replace this whole big term right here with just P times Q. So we get revenues back here, and so nothing changed over here, but I did that to show you that it's multiplying by a fancy one is still useful, because notice that over here, if we take total cost and divide it by Q output, we get average cost. So I can replace this whole term with just this. Average cost times quantity. So now profits equal price times quantity minus average cost times quantity. And then finally, look at here, we have a Q here and a Q there. We can factor this out to get this. I just erase both Q's. I'm factoring it out and putting it on the outside of a big bracket. And now we find that profits equals price minus average cost times quantity. And I'm going to write that more succinctly. Profit is just price minus average cost times the quantity. So what this means is that if you can ever operate in an area where price minus average cost is a positive number, where price is greater than average cost, then profits are going to be greater than zero because you don't produce negative quantities. Now to see why this may be important, look here. I want you to notice something. We saw that our wheat price that I gave you is just $4 per bushel. And then you know the average cost of production. And then you know that because the profit formula is this, price minus average cost times quantity, anytime one of these rows is less than 4, you can make money. And indeed, that is the case. Whenever average cost falls below the wheat price, falls below $4, our profits are indeed positive. And once we start changing the wheat price, we'll see why that can be particularly important.